Oh yeah, she's that country girl who overcame the stigma that Southern women are barefoot, backwoods, and backwards. Now she's an articulate voice for conservative values and wisdom in America. Sitting on her front porch, sharing common sense, here's Marnie.
Hi, welcome back to my front porch where we talk about common sense principles in America. Let's talk a little bit about that term, common sense. We talk a lot today about how it seems like logic and reason and common sense have been thrown out the window and the world is turned upside down in its thinking, and it doesn't make any sense to us how people are choosing to believe or how they're reacting in different situations, and it just seems kind of nuts to those of us who have more traditional common sense values, that kind of thing. So we see this as crazy, right? As I've been reading the book 1984, I actually graduated in 1984, and we read it our senior year, and I hadn't read it since. But something told me, go back and read this book. So I've been reading it, and in the book, the main character is rewriting history, is what he does for a living. You know, he works in the party that runs everything, and they have him going through and changing historical documents. So let's say that John Doe was a national hero 5 years ago, but now he's turned and the party doesn't like him anymore. Well, it would be this guy's job to go back in and find all references to this man and make him not a hero anymore, just get rid of that. In fact, they might just wipe the man completely and make him an unperson, a non-person, so that he no longer exists. Any documentation of him even exists. It's all wiped out. This man, as he's going through and doing his day job and everything, he remembers certain events in his own mind as happening a certain way. For example, let's say 2 years ago, the country was at war with Eurasia. But now they're friends with Eurasia and they're enemies with East Asia. So, you know, he has to go back and change those things. And he has these memories, but there's no proof of anything that he remembers. And so as time passes and years pass, he thinks back on as when he's young and how things were, but there's no documented proof for any of it anymore. And so he's wondering, was it really true? Is that what really happened? And truth becomes this muddied thing, and he doesn't, just common sense for him just doesn't seem to exist anymore. And I'm going to read you just a short snippet of 1984 where he's thinking about this. And he says, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. It was their final, most essential command. His heart sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him, the ease with which any party intellectual would overthrow him in debate, the subtle arguments which he would not be able to understand, much less answer. And yet he was in the right. They were wrong, and he was right. The obvious, the silly, and the true had got to be defended. Truisms are true. Hold on to that. The solid world exists. Its laws do not change. Stones are hard, water is wet, objects unsupported fall towards Earth's center. Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 makes 4. If that is granted, all else follows. Math, for example, is the most, it's just, there are absolute truths in math. 2 + 2 = 4. But even at this point in this man's history, you couldn't count on even that being something that the party would support. In many ways, those of us who will have more conservative values, we feel like people are saying, in essence, 2 + 2 is 5 or something like that. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. As I have been making different discussions and making different posts on social media and engage with people who don't see the world the way I see it, I have begun to realize that what is at the root of it is we do not share the same foundational, fundamental principles. For example, someone who says there's no God is going to come with a different set of reasoning than someone like me who believes there is a God. That's just one thing that could be different. There could be other principles that I accept as hardcore truths that they do not. And because we're working off different foundations, we come to different conclusions. And when we try to discuss things with each other, if we don't share at least some common framework, you can't even have a discussion. It's like me when I talk about abortion is taking a life. for someone who doesn't really value life, or doesn't see that life is from God and shouldn't be taken away, or that God said, thou shalt not kill. Okay, you can't reason with someone who doesn't accept the same moral code as you. You can't work off the same rational thought with these people. So when we're having discussions, you might say, well, why are we even having these discussions if we don't share something? And that's a good question. Maybe we shouldn't be bothering with some, but you don't know until you have the discussion. Okay, so a lot of times I'll throw something out on social media and get people talking, and I do it sometimes. I know not everybody's going to agree with me. I'm not really looking for agreement across the board. I like it when somebody agrees with me. I'm human, and somebody says, hey, you're right. But there's one reason is that somebody might give me another perspective that augments my view. And they could take either stance, for or against, whatever, but they might give me some more information that I might need to fully understand the subject at hand. The other thing you might do when you're having discussions is that you're trying to see if you're right, or maybe you're open to changing your mind on that subject and you'd like some more information on it. But if we get down to somebody that's, just not ever going to see the basic foundation and they're not going to accept it and you're not willing to change yours, we probably should just agree to disagree at that point, because there's nothing to work with. Sometimes I feel like, oh, why bother? Why bother to have these discussions? Because the people that are going to agree with you probably already agree with you. And the people who aren't, you're never going to change their mind. But I do think that there are those of us out there who do have certain basic beliefs that we have that may need tweaking, and by discussing with other people, we get a clearer view of reality. Are you familiar with the parable of the blind man and elephant, where one of them feels the tail and thinks it's a rope, another one feels the ear and thinks it's a fan, another one feels the side and thinks it's a wall, the one feels the leg and thinks it's a tree trunk? We each look at reality through our own ability to sense and see it and everything, but it's rarely the whole picture. So in the discussion, we get a better view of the whole elephant. We're seeing it better. Another thing that might cause a lot of problems in our communication and discussion, besides the premises that are different, is that we're using different terminology. In my religion, I have certain terms for things. And then if I have an open mind and can talk to other people with varying beliefs, I can start to see, oh, what you call this is what we call that. You might have these same principles, but we're using different terminology for those same principles. And so you can find the common ground and say, oh, well, we use this term. It's the same as my term over here for this. We mean the same thing. As we're discussing that with people, we want to look and say, okay, is it just that I have different terminology for this, but I'm saying the same thing? Or is it that when we work it all down, we just don't even see eye to eye on the core principle? Is 2 plus 2 4? If 2 plus 2 is not 4 for this other person, then it's hard to do math problems from that point. You're not going to get the same answers in the end if you don't believe in the same core absolutes. So I don't think it's our job to force other people to change their ideas. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to try to coerce people into changing their viewpoints. If you get down to it and you see that person's adamantly on one track and you're on another, just say, wish you the best. See you later. We'll agree to disagree. And then if they are open to looking at something different, or you're open to looking at something different, at least we can have a discussion that might expand our view of what it is. And you both may come away with a richer viewpoint of what the elephant looks like. Maybe it's a whole elephant now instead of just a wall, a fan, or a rope, or a snake for the trunk, or whatever. So anyway, something to think about. Y'all take care. God bless.